Well, hello there, everybody. It's been a little while. I'm sure you've had several good meals, plenty of good rest. At least I hope you have, because it's time for some tennis finally. It's been a little while. I'm Alex. Joining me as always is Steve. Candace is busy. She'll be back, of course. We will be back in full swing for Miami next week. But we're here just to check in and say hi, let you guys know how we're doing, give you guys some thoughts in general on what's going on. How are you, Steve?
I am good. Things have been busy, but busy is good. It's better than having nothing to do. So yeah,
That's
look,
right.
it's been an interesting little patch, I think, at the tennis year, and it's looking forward to having things kind of ramp up again next week for us all together. But yeah, look, it's been a little while, so we thought we'd check in and say hello and see what is going on in the world.
Well, we figured we'd go tournament by tournament, kind of let you know how things are going, kind of give you some broad strokes and maybe touch on a few matches that we may or may not be betting on in the next 24 hours. What do you think, Steve? We'll start with the men in Acapulco.
Let's do it. I think I think they're going to take to the court in just over an hour. I think the first matchup. So let's start there.
Yeah, they'll be underway shortly, just through one round there. Now, again, just to remind everybody, Miami's coming, but that doesn't start until Tuesday or even Wednesday at this point. So, there's a little bit of time. So a lot of these players, you don't quite have the look ahead effect you might have other weeks. Tsitsipas is our top seeds, Zverev's at the bottom. Some interesting, fun names in the middle, but I think those two names kind of dictate what's going to happen here. Have you seen anything, Steve, to kind of keep you from thinking it's either going to be Tsitsipas or Zverev lifting the trophy?
Not a lot. Like, it's an interesting. I mean, the draw is interesting, but also probably not the best ATP 500 we have ever seen. I think a lot of that top half will be dependent on what happens today between Tsitsipas and Isner. I think that's a really key match. But I think when you look at this draw, and like you said, that the look ahead, I guess, to Miami isn't quite as severe as you'll probably see with other tournaments. But also keeping in mind, when you look at the list of players who have signed up for Miami and the fact that, so there are some big names that continue to drop off it, there is a really big opportunity for a lot of these players to win a Masters 1000 next week. So, look, it's not going to be the end of the world, I think, this tournament for a lot of players. But, I think when you look at it, Tsitsipas Isner probably dictates, I think they should, if Tsitsipas gets through that, he should be able to go for a decent run here. But outside of that, Mazzetti versus Tiafoe is an interesting one. A player I want to see, I guess, have a little bit more consistency, I guess, and time on court is Milos Raonic, but he's far too short today, I think, against Kupfer. But look, there's some interesting names there. Fabio Fognini in front of the Mexican crowd will always be a little bit of value. But is there anyone that stands out to you outside of those names at the top and the bottom?
No, I think you circled some good ones there. Fognini does love playing in some of these tournaments. And I think he has a real shot. Maybe somebody like Kekmanovic, kind of the winner that Kekmanovic-Dimitrov match might have, kind of the game to take advantage of maybe Isner or Tsitsipas if they happen to not be there. FAA, he's been okay. I expect him to be a little bit better. I think Korda actually might be tougher than maybe people expect. So I think there are some fun matches here to watch. But at the end of the day, it's going to be Tsitsipas or Zverev, if not both, in the final. You mentioned that you like kind of the winner that's Tsitsipas Isner match to kind of take the day. Do you have an opinion on that specific match? As you start to look at the line, Tsitsipas a pretty heavy favorite, right around minus 400 or 1.25. Isner, plus 300 or better, right around 4. What are you seeing there? The spread's 3, totals up to 24 now.
It's the first time, I think, in a very long time I've been interested in a price on Isner. And I think that's kind of a combination of, yes, look, he didn't play the Australian swing, but it wasn't through injury or any issues. It was just he didn't want to travel and, undergo everything that, was a part of that whole month adventure for everyone. I think Isner's value. So I will be betting Isner in some capacity. That hasn't gone up on the website yet, but I will be getting involved there in some way, shape, or form. I just don't think Tsitsipas is the best return of serve at the end of the day. And, when you look at, if Isner can just look after his serve like he did the other day and find his way into some tie breaks, taking him at over $4 or, plus 300, it's not the worst spot to end up. I think, particularly with Tsitsipas, coming off a couple of longer weeks. There is a Masters 1000 on the horizon. It's not the worst spot, I don't think, for the American.
Yeah, as you start to look, and head-to-head isn't the best thing in the world, but given the styles you have here, you look back, they played 4 times, they're 2-2. Every match has had a tiebreaker. 3 of the 4 have had 2 tiebreakers. You got Isner playing tiebreakers. It's pretty much a coin flip at the end of the day. So I think there is some value in that money line. We talked a little bit pre-show. The spread of 3, it's starting to get a little bit of juicy, but I don't know who I could possibly make -3 against Isner, given how he plays, given the propensity for tie breaks and things like that. Tsitsipas, like you mentioned, not a great returner. So, we looked a little bit, the price on yes for a tiebreaker is -200 or 1.5, there's just a lot of ways to look at this where it probably goes over, and I think the better value is in the +3 or the Isner money line. Like you said, it should be a close match, and it's probably more of a coin flip, I think, than the odds indicate.
Yep, I completely agree with that. I think that's probably the most. I can't believe I'm saying this, but of the 8 matches, I guess, scheduled for Acapulco in this round, that's probably the most intriguing one. And I don't often say that about matches that involve Isner or Tsitsipas.
Any other thoughts on some of the other matches? I'm looking through the list for odds for, like you said, you lean Keffer against Raonic, but we're down to 4.5 on the spread, +550 on the money line. Sounds like you're passing there.
I don't like getting involved with +4.5 in men's tennis. It's too contingent on, if you sit there and you back the -4.5, if your player, serves second, it's 3 breaks instead of 2. There's just a bit more, outside of, unless there's a tie break involved, it just gets a little bit murkier when you're not sure how many breaks of serve you're going to need. So look, I'm not as keen there, but Raonic didn't impress me yesterday. Was it yesterday? I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before now against Tommy Paul. I just don't see, I think, a lot of value in his price here. I think of the other ones that stand out, Alexander Zverev would have been thrilled if you said the only players left with you in your quarter are Casper Ruud, Griekspoor, and Ger. So he should be able to kind of make the most of that. I don't mind Casper Ruud at the minus games. I think Griekspoor has come off, I think it was the back-to-back matches against Dennis Kudla through qualifying and lucky losering. So, look, it's probably not the best form there. And the other one, look, if I'm feeling particularly, like I want to get involved in a Fabio Fognini match later, I do think
I
was trying to figure out, if I'm feeling like I want to go down that path, that will be on my list as well. So look, I've already written up one of the women's ones, I think, which is up on the site, which we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, the next ones on the list are Ruud minus games, Fognini, and Isner, which is just a weird mix of players that I just wouldn't normally. I just wanted to spice up my Thursday, really.
Hold your nose, folks. I like Isner +3. I'll sprinkle the money line a little bit, and I'll probably talk myself into Fognini. I'm a big Fognini fan. All right, Steve, do you want to stay in Mexico or should we stay in the ATP? It's up to you.
Let's stay in the ATP. Then we'll come back to Mexico.
Dubai, again, the bigger tournament here this week. I think it's the bigger tournament. At least there's more players here. They're a little further along. We're down to the quarterfinals here. Some interesting quarterfinals. Kei Nishikori is going to play Lloyd George Harris in the quarterfinals, Steve. What do you think the odds on that happening would have been coming into the year?
It's an interesting one. Good on them.
It is nice to see Kei playing tennis again and healthy. That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And I think we saw signs on the indoor hard court. He beat de Minaur and he was starting to push and find a little bit more consistency. I'm a little annoyed at it, I guess. I did a preview for this tournament. I think they're both ATP 500s this week, so they're both similar. I think it's just Acapulco has a better transition kind of travel-wise into Miami.
Well, this field's bigger.
Yeah, I think, I built my entire discussion around the top half of this draw around Dominic Thiem losing. But I managed to pick all the wrong players. So I had the right intention, but the delivery was not so good. Look, it's an interesting one. And look, this is a great opportunity for Shapovalov. I think when you look at the top half now, you've got Lloyd Harris, Kai Nishikori, Denis Shapovalov, and Jeremy Shardy, who has somehow found found form of many years ago, which is great, and that
He's
good
back.
on him. Yeah, I mean he is back. He's still finding himself. He's digging holes, but he's managing to find a way out of them, which is the impressive part. Look, it's a great opportunity, I think, for those 4 players. And this is probably where it gets a little bit tricky now for Shapovalov, because he is probably the favourite out of these to make it to the final. And that's where things have become difficult in the past. So, look, it's going to be interesting. I think Nishikori, look, what if we got the odds up there against Harris? It's almost a coin flip. I'd probably be leaning with Nishikori there. I think we're seeing still, when you look at the overall form of Dominic Thiem since the US Open last year, it's not great. And I don't think he's been at 100% for large chunks of that. So I think that there is still that, but I think there's still potential when you look at how they're pricing everything. I don't think that's been taken into account enough. And I think that there are sometimes overreactions for players beating it. And I don't think wins over Thiem and Krajinovic are as good, I guess, as perhaps some of the form of Nishikori of late. And I just think about some of those particular matchups that Harris has had, and he struggled. I know it was off a long match. I think it was in Melbourne. I think he struggled against Mackenzie McDonald and a couple other players who are quite consistent, and competent off both wings and can cause a bit of trouble. I think he's going to find it a little bit tough there. So I'll probably get involved in some capacity with Nishikori. It's just figuring out, I guess, how to attack that. But down the bottom, it's Karatsev and Sinner, Fucsovics and Rublev. I mean, I'm on Rublev on the outright, but that's hardly inspiring. I think he was the favourite, and
it makes sense. I mean, I don't see anybody beating him. You know what I mean? Like, you start to look through this draw, other than him deciding maybe he wants an extra day of rest in Miami, which I don't think.
No,
he's clearly head and shoulders above everybody here, unless, I mean, maybe Sinner. If Sinner could maybe push him a little bit, but I don't see anybody in the top half who's going to give him any trouble.
I think Sinner could push him, but I think that he made some interesting comments. Was it last week or the week before when he lost to Medvedev? I think it was Sinner, and he just doesn't. It's almost like he doesn't quite believe yet that he's quite at that top level. Like he's kind of around the mark now, and he's putting together some good performances. But it's almost like he has to kind of find that confidence in himself that he can go, you know what, I can play against these top 10 players and play quite comfortably. But look, Karatsev versus Sinner is, it's probably the flavor of 2020 versus the flavor of the start of 2021. So it'd be interesting to see what unfolds there. But I don't think I'll be touching that match in any way, shape, or form.
As we start to look at the individual matches, you already touched on, being on K. I think that makes a lot of sense. Nothing else really sticks out to me, and I expect Rublev obviously to beat Fucsovics. I think Sinner beats Karatsev, but I don't know if I want to get involved on another one of those spreads. And then, Shapovalov, Shardy, again, kind of the same thing. I think, the favorites there advance, but I don't see any value in their numbers or the spread.
Yeah, I don't think I don't have a strong desire, I don't think, to get involved in a lot of those ones. Like, you look at Shapovalov and Shardy, it's probably going to come down to, one break point conversion here or there, or, a point or two in a tie break. And I don't see a big enough edge looking at where things are at the moment, odds-wise, to even contemplate getting involved.
All right. Any other thoughts here on Dubai before we jump into the women's tournaments we've got?
No, let's head on over to the WTA.
Monterrey in Mexico. We're in the second round there. Play is actually underway. We've had a couple matches here tonight. And maybe before we get into the overall thoughts, to give you guys kind of a heads up here, are there any matches you like tonight, Steve? I think there's one we both have some action on.
There is one I think we're both on in different ways. I'm on, so it's the Sorribes Tormo versus Yuvan match, which I think is last up from Monterrey. So I think there's two have been completed at the time that we're recording this, and there's two to come. I'm actually on Yuvan here, and it's, again, falling along the lines of that Fognini comment before. I thought I'd spice up my Thursday by getting involved in a match involving Sorribes Tormo. I think she One of the more underwhelming matches I've seen recently is probably Serenko versus Sorribes Tormo the other day. I think there was 16 breaks of serve, and it was just a mountain of really unenjoyable tennis. I think that should have been far more comfortable than Sorribes Tormo than it was. I don't think she's coming off arguably the biggest win of her career last week. She's come up against a number of players who just don't probably understand the best way to play her. And I think Yuvan has more of a mix of overall both shot making, her serve itself, but also the ability to use angles a little bit more and be a little bit craftier than perhaps some of the recent players that have faced Tormo. And I think, although like every match, I think at the moment Tormo will go on some run in some capacity. I think, looking at, I think it was $1.99 minus 101 seemed pretty solid for Yuvan. Now, I know you've kind of tackled this a slightly different way. So what was your thoughts around this match?
If I had to pick a side, I think you're on the right side here. I went with an over. 21 games here, I think is about half a game too low. I would probably hang a juicy 21.5 here. Both of these players actually like tie breaks. There's a lot of 7-5s that prop up here. I think we're going to have at least one long set in the first two. I think there's a great chance we see 3. So I took over 21 and over 2.5 sets here. I think this is going to be a long match, very closely contested. So playing the overs here, basically.
Yeah. And I think, our thoughts do kind of mesh a little bit. And part of what I was, I did consider just taking Yuvan to win the first set. And then, you kind of play that game with Sorribes Tormo where it's kind of the longer the match goes, the more it probably, if she's still in it deep in a third set, then, you probably, would prefer to be on her side. But I think, looking at Yuvan and looking at the amount of tennis Sorribes Tormo's played as well, I'm more inclined to go down the path of the overall match. But look, I wouldn't be surprised if it were 3 sets.
As we take a step back then to look at the tournament in general, the top 2 seeds are out here. Say what you will about the 1 seed. It was disappointing to see Podoroska get knocked out again. Just seems every once in a while her serve just falls completely apart, and that's a bad thing. So still have some pretty entertaining matches left. Very competitive. Taking a look at my outright preview, I had Fernandez. I did bet on Bouzkova before she withdrew, and then did actually play Yuvan after she was plugged in there. So I've got Yuvan, I've got Fernandez. I think I have a good chance of having, the winner of the top half there. When you start to look at the bottom half, Steve, is there anybody I should be worried about?
The bottom half? No.
I tend to agree, by the way.
Yeah. I think, you can maybe make a case that Lee versus Dansek match may kind of, shape that bottom half. I don't think there's enough consistency in any of the other names there to kind of think that there's a lot of concern. I think, Fernandez, had you told me that she would face Coco Vandeweghe off like next to no tennis, and then was it Kakova and then Kuzmova if she wins that, to get out of her court, to get out of her. No, Kuzmova's already beaten Dart, I think. Yeah.
That happened earlier. Sorry.
To get to the quarterfinal. Get through the quarterfinal. You take that every day of the week. It's an interesting one though for her because she can't really. Was it here that she made the final last year? Was it this one that she made?
I think so. It was, and I don't. It might have been Acapulco.
No, maybe. Yeah. It's she has played well here, but she hasn't looked. She kind of falls into that category with some of the other teenage WTA players where, yes, they are very very good, and yes, their prices can look tempting at times match to match, but you need to consider, I guess, a little bit more of the inconsistency that can sometimes pop up in their game, and that's why, you see, I don't generally back Coco Gauff a lot. Doesn't mean I don't rate her as a tennis player. It's the same as Alcaraz on the men's side. These players, there's a lot of talent there. The consistency isn't quite there. But this has been a pretty impressive, it's been a pretty good draw for Fernandez, and she should be he should be in the semi-final. And look, unless, Schmiedlova pulls out some vintage performance. I think, I think Yuvan beats Sorribes Tormo, and I think Yuvan should then win that follow-up match. So I think you're okay there. But down the bottom, there's no one that's kind of inspiring with significant form. Zulin probably did everyone a favor by taking out Bouchard. But outside of that, Stojanovic, Kalinskaya, both good on their day, but, consistency, they've got to win, 3-4 more matches to get through to win the title. And I just don't see them kind of building a week like that off their recent form.
Yeah, the other two names, Onley and Lauren Davis, maybe be able to put together a nice run to the semifinals, but they're just going to be outclassed there. So I think you're right. We're going to see Fernandez hopefully, lift her first title, or at least the winner of that Yuvan Fernandez match. Any other single match looks for you? I agree that Zidansek might be some value here against Onley, but I don't have a great feel for either player. Anything else stick out to you?
I'm trying to avoid Zidansek matches on hard court because it's just confusing me. Look, I mean, Golubic, she's had an interesting run. She's a heavy favorite against Davis. But again, I don't know if I trust her in an outright market either.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into the last tournament we have. The women are in St. Petersburg. We've got the quarterfinals coming up here. Or not the quarterfinals, sorry, the second half of the pre-quarterfinals, if you will. Alexandrova sitting there at the top, still a favorite. I have Zvonareva. That's the only outright there. She's looking in solid shape. I think she's going to win her quarter. Again, Alexandrova looks to be in good shape. Curious to see maybe if I've got Gasparian here as an underdog to beat Siniakova. Wonder if Gasparian can maybe give her a match. What do you think of that little section?
Yeah, I don't mind Gasparian there. I think, she's, again, it's that type of player that she could put a run together, but also I wouldn't blink if she withdrew before a match with Siniakova. You just don't quite know where she's at.
Right. She looks to be kind of healthy, not too much tape this week.
Well, that's the thing. You kind of hold your breath and wait for her to walk out and go, okay, so where's the tape? But, her best tennis in indoor hard court is pretty good. I think she's certainly a great chance there and is the type of player who would give a bit of grief to Alexandrova. Looking to the next video, I think you're on Zvonareva. Got through a long match with Ferro overnight and, made her way through to the quarterfinals.
Didn't like how difficult that was.
Yeah. Maybe Pavlyuchenkova could cause a little bit of trouble potentially, but she'd probably need to lift her form. I don't see Gasanova getting past Pavlyuchenkova. I watched Gasanova versus Zavatska yesterday, and that is 3 hours of my life I would rather get back.
That was a mistake.
I've made some mistakes this week. That was one of them.
It was one of them.
The other one was backing Benoit Paire to beat Tsitsipas. Anywho,
not to do that.
Yeah, I know you told me, but I just wanted to do it anyway. Anyway, when you look at this draw though, and this is someone who I've kind of supported, and I think I got her to win one of those. Which one was the tournament the week after the Australian Open? That weird second week. I don't mind Kasatkina.
Gippsland?
I think it might have been Gippsland. They all kind of merged into.
No, Phillip Island.
That was Phillip Island. Yes.
Phillip Island.
Daria Kasatkina. She seems to have found her confidence again. She beat Towson in the previous round. She always seems to play well. Yeah.
To blank her in the tiebreak, that's huge.
She seems to have that confidence again in her game. And she's one of those people who she cannot hide the fact that she isn't confident, when she's not. But she looks a lot better on court. That title has done her the world of good. She normally does play well, at home. Indoor hard court's not the worst surface for her by any stretch. And when you look at that little section there, I think she's the type of player who could counterpunch and cause trouble for Kudermetova if they met in a quarterfinal. And, looking at potential semi-finalists being either Christian or Kuznetsova, I think there's a pretty big opportunity for her to make another jump up the rankings.
Yeah, I think maybe her draw's a little tougher than you do the rest of the way out. I think Kudermetova is going to give her a tough match. I think Kuznetsova and And I'm sorry, you said Christian. Did Christian beat Ostapenko? I haven't been paying attention to
Yes.
around here.
Yeah, 6-3, 7-6. That one. So
I'm going to have to send a German a nasty message for talking me out of that.
don't be
It's
mean.
okay, Vinny. I forgive you. I probably did the right thing, but you're right. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, so if you're making a line for the final, if it's Alexandrova versus Kasatkina, who's the favorite?
Oh.
And I would ask you the same question with Zvonareva. I have Alexandrova as a favorite there. And
Alexandrova would be favorite, but I don't think it'd be by much against Kasatkina. That's probably one of those matches where you like play that really obscure game of like play under 21.5 and over 2.5 sets and hope it's like 6-love, 1-6, 6-love.
And then you get crushed when it goes 7-5, 7-5.
Yeah. And then everyone's sad. But look, I think
I did the math on that, by the way. It's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Turns out there's too much juice in the over 2.5 set market.
No, please gamble responsibly. It would be it's the match I want to see out of the week. I think Alexandrova would be favorite, but Kasatkina wouldn't hand it to her. It'll probably come down to actually how many first serves Alexandrova gets in overall.
Yeah.
But I think that's where I would be more interested, I think, now to jump in at, to Kasatkina. Just looking at, she'll probably lose to Sasnovich by the time I've actually uploaded this audio to a podcast form. But
I don't think it'll take that long.
But look, I think she is now edging into that price where you need to start considering her for outrights again, which is nice because it's been a little while. 2019.
Yeah, she's smart. She's fun to watch. Like you said, she's very emotional. You can see what's going on. The only bet I had in that match against Sasnovich, I was able to get under 9.5 games in the first set at minus 140 maybe or something in that range. Did you have any single game picks there? Again, I'm on Gasparian as an underdog. She's plus 120 or 2.2 now. I played it at plus 140. Probably still a little value at plus 120, obviously less so. And the rest, again, Pavlyuchenkova is a huge favorite over Gasanova. Kudermetova is a huge favorite over Rakimova. I'm just going to cross those two off. Any thoughts from you on Siniakova, Gasparian, or Kasatkina, Sasnovich? I mean, you said you kind of maybe lean Sasnovich. I feel like you were sort of warming up to that idea, but maybe not.
I mean, Kasatkina, it's one of those ones. I'm more interested in her outright price than I am in her very, very short price against Sasnovich in this particular match. And I think you've touched on it a couple of times before. Like beating Sasnovich is a really good kind of marker for where a player is at. And that's probably her test here. So look, to be honest, it may not be, Alexandrova, I don't think she's not playing tonight, is she? I think she's already in the tournament. It might be a case of actually hold fire on Kasatkina until after she plays Sasnovich and then jump into the outright if she were to win. Because I don't think you're going to take a significant hit to her outright price looking at the current odds.
You have outright prices up in front of you?
I do not. But I think, I do like the Gaspar. I do like the look of Gasparian at that plus money. I don't think, Siniakova did beat Flipkins. Shout out to Candice. Flipkins did actually participate in this tournament, but she didn't pick her.
Smart.
But I think Gasparian is value probably in that spot. And then I probably would avoid Kasatkina versus Sasnovich.
So I'm looking here at the odds. I'm looking at DraftKings, which happens to not so coincidentally have the same odds as Unibet if you're somewhere else in the world. Alexandrova is the favorite at plus 350, but then it's Kudermetova plus 400, Kuznetsova plus 500, Kasatkina plus 550, Pavlyuchenkova and Zvonareva at 7-1 each. That seems kind of wrong. I mean,
I would go Kasatkina, then Pavlyuchenkova, probably out of those.
I guess Kuznetsova is favored because she has the hypothetically easier match than Kasatkina does against Kudermetova, so maybe that makes sense. But Kudermetova being the second favorite at 4-1 seems like a mistake.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
I mean, any value for you in those numbers? Again, you said you like Kasatkina, but at 5.5 to 1, I don't know if that's still so appealing given what she has left in front of her.
She'd probably still be 4.5 to 1 if she beats Sasnovich. I'd probably be more inclined to jump in there. I think it's it's a tricky little danger spot. But, when you look at kind of who's ahead then, I think, she has the kind of game to really trouble Kudermetova, and will then also, against whoever out of Christian and Kuznetsova who wins the other quarterfinal, she'd be a favorite there. I'd be happy to kind of roll in with that price, I think, if that all eventuates.
Sounds great. Any other thoughts in general? That's all I got.
I don't think so. I think that is all. There's a lot going on, but it's nice to kind of have everything a little bit more focused on Miami at the top level next week. I mean, some of the big names are all kind of avoiding the tournament now, and it looks like it's becoming more of a clay court tournament based on the names that are coming into the draw. But it's just going to be fun to, I guess, have a big draw to kind of digest both for the men's and the women's at the top level. But then also, there's going to be some quality, I think, challenger fields coming up as well as we start to transition towards the clay on a more permanent basis for the next couple of months.
Yeah, Miami, for those of you that don't remember, is like a half Grand Slam, a Master Slam, a Grandmaster. I don't know what the heck title we want to come up with it for. It's not a 2-week event. It's like a 1.5-week event. It is a bigger field. There's more points. It's interesting, but like you said, we'll have some challenger stuff going on, and we'll be back in about 5 or so days, maybe a little less than that, hopefully, if the draws get out in time to preview all that stuff. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. I think that's where it's been tricky. I think the last couple of weeks as well, they've been starting main draws on Sundays and, putting up the main draw and then starting the main draw like 14 hours later. So it has been a little bit tricky, but looking forward to getting the gang back together and tackling what should be pretty interesting draws from Miami. And I'm interested to see how it all kind of unfolds. Miami is sometimes kind of lost as a bit of an afterthought to Indian Wells, but, this time Miami kind of gets it. It's all by itself. If you're traveling to the States to play,
there's no look ahead.
Yeah, you're there to play this tournament. The draw may not be as strong as other years, but it'll be interesting nonetheless to see what unfolds.
Well, thank you everybody for watching. For those of you who get this on podcast a little bit later, thank you for listening. We'd like a thumbs up, a like, a rating, review, whichever way you're watching or listening. Make sure you follow us and all the stuff because, again, we'll be back. Make sure we'll be in full force. We'll have a WTA Miami show, maybe a separate ATP Miami show. Maybe we'll wrap it all together. We'll see. But we'll make sure Candace is back so it's not just the two of us hammering back and forth the whole time. So get excited, folks. We'll be back soon.